This is the last live show of 2018, and so perhaps it is fitting that a year which brought Donald Trump the largest midterm rebuke in a wave election in decades is now tonight a year that ends effectively with Trump aides beginning to cave to what we just discussed, the incoming Democratic Congress, which, of course, hasn't even technically taken power yet. Now, I'm about to show you what that caving may look like. Now, let me be clear. We are not reporting tonight that the shutdown is anywhere near over. It's not. We're not reporting a breakthrough. We're not suggesting even that these promises that may emanate from the Trump administration can be taken at their word on good faith. We all remember other immigration negotiations that have fallen apart when Trump or his aides simply dropped offers they made to, yes, Chuck and Nancy. But here is something new. It is Trump's acting chief of staff revealing they have begun backing off President Trump's demand of $5 billion for the wall.
We were at 5 on Saturday afternoon. We sat down with Mr. Schumer and gave him a number below 5. I'm not going to tell you what it is.
Below 5? Okay. Not going to tell you what it is. Could be 4.9. Could be 4. Could be lower. Well, again, when we talk about caving in real time, the leaks tonight suggest it was way lower, down to $2.5 billion, or half of Trump's original demand. The Democrats rejecting the offer because, as you know, they've been very clear about this whole thing. They're not going to fund the wall. That's not going to be their first order of business as they take power. And that now has Trump's chief of staff doing some wall rebranding.
Wait. Hold on. The American people wanted a wall. What is the president, what deal then now is President Trump willing to accept that is anything short of that wall?
Oh, no, we're still building the barrier. That's why the government is closed. Is the president is not willing to give up on the southern barrier. Keep in mind that steel slat fence that he sent the picture out, that is the ideal border barrier.
Now, even if this isn't going that well for the White House, there are leaks as well that Donald Trump takes some solace in the idea that as a matter of media, as a matter of sort of public discussion and narrative and all that stuff, that this could overshadow Nancy Pelosi's return to power next week. Here is the Daily Beast headline: Team Trump gleeful that shutdown will hijack incoming Democratic House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's big moment. Reporting increasingly, Trump and his allies see an upside in forcing Pelosi to have to spend the first days, if not weeks, of the next Congress engaged in an argument over border wall funding rather than her preferred agenda of ethics and election reforms and congressional oversight. Now, those are anonymous leaks, but here is a version of basically the same strategy on the record as the White House press secretary answers a question about federal workers and the shutdown.
What message does the White House have as these people struggle to make it through the holidays?
The real question here is Nancy Pelosi is only looking to protect her speakership and not protect our borders. And that's why she's unwilling to negotiate with us and unwilling to make any type of a deal.
Team Trump may be excited to use all this against Pelosi, but they also could be making a pretty classic mistake in politics as well as life. I'm talking about, of course, projection. Assuming that others see the world the way you do, or that others are bothered by exactly what bothers you. You probably see where I'm going with this, because while Trump's first priority may simply be attention, who's going to get press coverage next week, what is the news cycle day to day, Nancy Pelosi's proven she does have other priorities, and whether one agrees with them or not, they do involve policy. She has navigated her share of bad news cycles already, as well as several presidents, and is still poised to return to this third most powerful post in all of Washington. And as for the votes, consider this. When the president looked ready to sign a spending bill last week that did not include the wall, it was the Republicans in the House Freedom Caucus who were revolting. They encouraged the president to shut down the government, aided, of course, by a lot of right-wing media noise. And now, well, some of them are saying they want a shutdown until hell freezes over.
It sounded like McConnell and Ryan McCarthy were about to convince the president, you're on your own, you have no support. And that's when the Freedom Caucus took to the House floor and gave speech after speech about how important it was that we keep our promise and protect America with a wall. And the president saw.
How long should the president keep the government closed?
Well, it's only a part of 25%. And because we keep seeing people losing their lives without one, you do it till hell freezes over.
February?
Till hell freezes over.
Hell freezes over will take longer than February, according to what we know. Gene Robinson is a Pulitzer Prize-winning writer for The Washington Post. Yamiche Alcindor, White House correspondent for the PBS NewsHour, and Jonathan Alter, columnist for the Daily Beast, all MSNBC analysts. Gene, you see the indications there, some movement on the numbers, while the hardcore caucus, if you want to call them that, saying until hell's literally frozen.
Right. And so, look, I think your analysis is correct that Nancy Pelosi will be Speaker, will come in with her own agenda and her own priorities and her own sense of what's important. And it won't be the same as Donald Trump's. And, why would she, at this point, take anything Mick Mulvaney says as holy writ, or indeed any deal that gets negotiated as holy writ, given Donald Trump's record of simply going back on deals that everybody else thinks are made deals. And so I don't quite know. I mean, to me, that is the huge stumbling point to anything. There's no incentive for Democrats to move, knowing that Trump is going to pull the rug out from under the whole thing at the last minute as soon as Ann Coulter, has indigestion.
Well, I'm confused, Gene, because when you put it like that, it makes it sound like he's not a good negotiator.
I think he ought to read this book called The Art of the Deal that was written by my college classmate Tony Schwartz, and some guy named Trump got his name on it too.
Yeah, well, the art of the branding, that part, there's something to that. The art of the PR. We're past PR, Yamiche, and as Joy Reid and I were just discussing, next week is different. I mean, we in the press are fairly accused sometimes of dramatizing the narrative. But next week will be something that has never happened before in the Trump era, which is the Democrats holding power. Here was one of them, Congressman Cicilline, explaining his view of it.
He wants a fight about this because he wants to distract from the other very bad things that have happened in the last 2 weeks. He lost his defense secretary in a very serious rebuke of his foreign policy. The Trump Foundation was closed because of persistent illegalities. He's lost the ISIS coordinator, Mr. McGurk. The stock market has been very volatile. The walls are closing in with the Mueller investigation. So I think the president has decided, you know what, a shutdown will distract from all of that.
Yamiche?
I think the president likes boogeymen, and in this case, a boogie woman, which is Nancy Pelosi. For years, Nancy Pelosi has been someone that the Republicans have held up, not Chuck Schumer, not Harry Reid, but Nancy Pelosi as someone that they said, okay, this is someone that we can raise money around and make her a boogeyman. What we have now is the president saying on the record in front of cameras, I will own the shutdown. I will not blame you for the shutdown. Chuck Schumer was laughing when the president said that in the Oval Office. And he said that because he knew that was a money quote that Democrats were going to be able to tweet, that they were going to be able to quote, they were going to be able to put in commercials. So no matter what the president says, we all know that the president wanted this shutdown and said that he was going to be proud to do this over border security. I would add to that list that Eugene Robinson just listed and you just listed about the issues that the president has. And the other thing that the president has is 2 dead children in federal custody. These are 2 immigrant children from Guatemala, an 8-year-old boy and a 7-year-old girl, who should be talking maybe a little bit more about, because these 2 children are really symbols of how America is failing at this immigration issue. The president's own commissioner of U.S. Customs and Border Patrol told CBS News, we need to do things differently. We need resources to go to mental health, to taking care of these children, to figuring out facilities where we can actually house children. So the problems are mounting, and I think the president hopes that through his PR spin, he can make the Democrats own this. But I think there are so many issues with this White House that he's in some ways overwhelmed by them.
Well, you mentioned those deaths in custody. We've covered that on this program. I know several of you have looked at that story. And on that point, Jonathan, take a listen to the defense of one congressional Republican on the issue.
But I think it's wrong to be piling on here and somehow blaming ICE. I mean, they've had hundreds of thousands of people that they've had custody of over the years, and I think these are the only 2 children that have died, certainly in recent memory. So considering all of that and considering what does happen in housing projects across the country, I think ICE has an excellent record, and I'd be very reluctant to be doing any piling on here right now.
I believe
trying to make political points at this.
Jonathan?
It's not a good look for the Republicans, Ari. It's callous. It's disregarding that there are real changes that need to be made in ICE. And we're going to see hearings on this. This is what people don't understand, is that elections really do have consequences. And the big consequence for the Republicans coming up is going to be a whole series of hearings on all of these issues that you and others at MSNBC and in other news organizations have been raising over the last 2 years. There are going to be hearings on all of them. Trump can try to distract attention with his games. He can try to say, well, we'll overwhelm Nancy Pelosi, on the day she's sworn in, so she might lose that news cycle. She doesn't care about that at all. She can walk and chew gum at the same time. She can bring forward a Democratic agenda and have these hearings in the various committees that the Democrats will now control that will unearth a whole series of abuses on the part of the Trump administration.
Yeah, and Yamiche, as you know, when we report out these types of stories, the first period of a shutdown does not have the widest consequences. A lot of what we end up doing is reporting on past shutdowns and projection. But when you get into weeks or even months, you start to remember all the different things the federal government's involved in. And yes, it is people who have less money, working class people, people living paycheck to paycheck, farmers, people in poor rural areas, you name it, who are squeezed by this. I want to read from one such point for your analysis. USDA announcing that they'll be doing these direct payments to growers hardest hit by the trade war with China, and then the government was shut down. USDA saying in a statement that farmers were told checks will continue to go out during the first week of the shutdown, but direct payments for farmers who haven't certified production and farm loans and disaster assistance, all of that begins its hold in the second week and won't start up again until the government reopens. I want to report the fact, I'm not making light of it, but you button that up, Yamiche, with until hell freezes over, and there's a lot of farmers that are going to be hurt. And the question, I think, becomes, are they stuck as pawns in the president's political game?
Well, we're calling it a partial government shutdown because it's 25% of the government, but that's still hundreds of thousands of people that are not going to get paychecks come January 11th. And Mick Mulvaney and other people at the White House are indicating that this could go on for a long time. So what you have is people that could be having to take on second and third jobs to try to supplement the money and be federal workers at the same time. Add to that the fact that the president said most federal workers are Democrats and that most people impacted are Democrats. We know from the last 2 years of his presidency that he isn't a president that's tried to unite people. He's a president who's tried to stick to his base, try to stick to really turning out Republicans in elections and at campaign rallies. So in the back of the president's mind, if he's thinking these are all Democrats, who cares that much? That's a big deal. And that means that in some ways might go on for longer because the president doesn't think a mother who's a Democrat who is looking for her paycheck is going to really be someone that he needs to worry about.
Right. And that brings you back, Gene, to a little bit of the core problem that so many people have talked about with negotiating, which is apart from whether Trump's good or bad at it, does anything hold water? I don't know if you ever saw that great film, Get Shorty. Remember that one? But there's a scene where Travolta is trying to negotiate with the folks, and both of them are running their mouths. And at one point he says, am I talking to you or am I talking to you? And he gets the answer so he can figure out who he can negotiate with. And I feel like Congressman Jerry Connolly, for your analysis I want to play you, had his Get Shorty moment where he's saying, look, we don't even know who to talk to. Take a look.
We don't know who we're dealing with.
Right.
Who is the negotiator on the executive branch of government that we can deal with? It's not the vice president. It's not the chief of staff. It's not the OMB director. And apparently it's not even Trump. He'll change his mind on a dime.
Gene?
Right, and so that's exactly the question. They can make a deal. You can make sense for everybody. Everybody, it's buttoned up. Everybody can claim a win. It makes political sense. Get the government started. Everybody's on board, and then Donald Trump will just say no on a whim because he's watching Fox News that morning. I mean, that's what is almost inevitably going to happen. You can see it. So what really will happen, I think the more likely course of events is that as this looks politically worse and worse for Trump, as he sees that he's sort of boxed himself into a corner here and there's no way out, he'll find some way to sort of get as far away from the issue as possible. Either by changing the subject or sort of tweeting that he's washing his hands of it or whatever, and then the adults will make a deal, and government will open up again. And meanwhile, just one word of advice: Democrats don't write to me and ask for advice, but if they were asking for advice, I would tell them not to worry about Nancy Pelosi being made into a boogeyman or boogie woman, because guess what? Whoever is the Democratic speaker, for that matter, whoever is the Democratic candidate in 2020, Donald Trump is going to demonize.
Right.
That's what he's going to do. It could, no matter who it is, no matter what they do. So that's just a given. So Democrats, and I think they're going to do this, should just get on about their business.
Get on about the business. It's a fair point to fit in a break on. Gene Robinson, John Alton, and Michelle Cinder, thanks to each of you.